Hi, Dr. Shelton. I hope this video finds you well. As we conclude our semester together, I'm excited to share with you how much this course has really made me think about my philosophy on education, how much I can continue to improve on in my own teaching practices. At the start of my philosophy development in week one, I felt strongly that one main purpose of education was to help prepare students to be successful and become positive members in our democratic society. However, throughout our course, I realized that there's so much more that's involved to actually make this happen, like culturally relevant pedagogy and culturally responsive teaching. As schools are now on summer break, it certainly gives me time to look through my lesson plans as I already planned to, but now I can make changes to incorporate culturally relevant pedagogy and culturally responsive teaching. Throughout this course, I also realized that integrating these pedagogies involve more than simply helping students see themselves represented in the curriculum. For example, the activities I mentioned in my essays, like Cultural Corner or sharing specific classroom books during Reader's Workshop, help students celebrate and learn about different cultures. And yes, it mirrors specific students in my classroom and encourages collaboration. But I also realize that these really are just surface level practices, and anyone can truly do it. Your feedback throughout this course helped me revise these activities and think more critically about how curriculum can be designed so all students' identities, languages, cultures, and lived experiences are truly represented in the classroom and every day. The most important way my philosophy has involved is how I realize helping my students become productive members of society can be done by teaching them how to be culturally aware and accepting of others. So I also realized this starts from how I can successfully teach them through a culturally relevant pedagogy and culturally responsive teaching practice. I've recognized that my past attempts of incorporating these pedagogies have really been, again, surface level. So rather than asking my students about their cultures and traditions and celebrating diverse holidays by reading a picture book and then engaging in like a hands-on activity or a craft um, throughout the school year, I understand that I can better honor their cultures and languages by incorporating into daily learning and across all subject areas. So rather than viewing it as an additional lesson component I need to include and seeing it more as like a burden, I can also utilize students' community cultural wealth, as explained by Yasso 2005, as an actual instructional tool for me to help revise my lessons and classroom learning structures. Likewise, when I invite student families in for classroom activities like Culture Corner, which I also describe in my philosophy essay more in depth, Mall et al. 1992 helped me understand that I can partner with families and incorporate their funds of knowledge to help me better adjust that activity, Culture Corner, in the future and utilize it as a rich learning opportunity for my students to learn about the cultures around them and in their classroom while also affirming their diversity. Our course's discussion with Latson Billings' 1995 article, but that's just good teaching, also helped me understand how I can utilize students' cultures and lived experiences as teacher resources and help continue engagement towards their learning as students are now recognizing that they have a relevant experience to their own actual learning and within the curriculum. Also, Ladson Billings' three components of culturally relevant pedagogy, academic success, cultural competence, and critical consciousness really helped shape my philosophy and my contemporary issue topic, which also played a huge role in how I've strengthened my philosophy. Ladson Billings' three components really taught me so much more about culturally relevant pedagogy than I had before in other courses and in my teacher preparation programs. Before our course, again, I wasn't really too familiar with it. So I guess this also relates back to how our course's discussions about how teacher preparation programs are insufficient in preparing teachers for today's diverse schools, and there's still so much more to learn. Looking back at some of my inquiry projects, like the River Trail investigation, that I also mentioned in my essay, I now realize that inquiry-based teaching is really important because it doesn't just strengthen students' mathematical understanding or any content area that you're integrating an inquiry project on, but it also helps develop their social skills. Yoder et al. 2025, which I also referred to in my contemporary issue essay, describes that social skills are important aspects that teachers must help students develop as they learn with their linguistic abilities. So I always knew that students' home languages and their home discourses were important, and I talked a lot about that in my previous MSCD courses. And so I knew that it should always be honored, but one thing that I didn't know until now was how impactful it really is for them to be able to continue to use it when they collaborate, communicate, and solve problems with their peers. In my book club books text by Irizarry, they really like drove this idea home by sharing relevant experiences from the student researchers. This practice in general really helps prepare students for the real world as well. Lastly, cultural competence and critical consciousness also have a deeper meaning for me as well. This course and my contemporary issue topic helped me realize that students should have consistent opportunities to learn about other cultures, recognize which voices are missing, and critically analyze whose perspectives are also being misrepresented, if they are even being represented in any way. At the same time, I really do think it's important for students to also see the value of their own identities simultaneously. I also realized certain projects where I thought I had given students a chance to highlight their identity or culture was actually not sufficient as well. And again, I was just scratching the surface. So in my Voices for Independence project, for example, I'm really excited to try it again next year, but center the countries that students research around the countries that my students and their families are actually from, or where they resonate most with. So one aspect that I can imagine being really interesting is that this project might look different every year, and even if I use student exemplars, they may not be super relevant because every group of students in every class has their own range of cultures, languages, and race, and it might just vary. I've also learned that integrating families' funds of knowledge is impactful in having students learn from their lived experiences. Although I probably need to have family guests be approved by my grade level administration due to safety precautions and just a lot of strict school rules, I can definitely integrate families' funds of knowledge digitally in the meantime. So I could have students video record their parents at home in an interview using their school given iPad, or I can have parents join and hop on a Google Meet. Overall, this course has changed the way I plan to teach as an elementary teacher. I'm more confident and prepared to intentionally revise my instructions that value students' cultures, challenges them academically, and encourages them to think critically about the world around them. And with this practice, I know my students will be more successful in navigating the real world, as many of these skills do transfer to higher education experiences, course areas, and definitely their future occupations as they talk and collaborate more with diverse people as well. I also believe that I still have a lot to grow in as a novice teacher. I'm prepared to continue to involve my teaching philosophy at the same time. One statement that has begun to emerge throughout our course that continues to keep me motivated is that every student deserves to learn in a classroom where their classmates, teachers, and school staff value their culture, language, experiences, and identity as strengths. This idea, I also believe, ties back to my philosophy, and I would hope as students understand this, they can also spread this understanding to the outside world as they mature. By learning through scholars like Banks and Banks, Gay, Latz and Billings, Irizarry, Mall et al., Yasso, Hernandez et al., and Spring, I am determined to create a classroom where every student feels valued, challenged, and empowered to become a thoughtful and compassionate member of our diverse democratic society. I appreciate your time looking into my philosophy essay and listening to my reflection video, and I look forward to hearing about your feedback. Thank you and have a wonderful summer.